thing you mentioned about Washington. Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the Ottumwa Board of Health to order. I'd invite you to turn your cell phone to silent or vibrate. And then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chris, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Strebe. Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Approve the minutes from meeting number 15 on December 18th, 2018 as presented. Recommendation, approve the minutes.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set to consider condemnation of the structures on the lot located at 1722 Maple Street.
Good evening, Kevin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a couple of pictures here, one each of both of the structures under consideration this evening. Our first one is 1722 Maple Street. This property was placarded October 15th, 2018 due to extreme dilapidation. The owner is unable to make the needed repairs, therefore staff recommends condemnation and demolition. We do have a photo coming up. Is it?
Yeah, it was working.
We may be having technical difficulties, Your Honor.
I think we can go on with. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item, now's the time to step to the microphone. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Condemn the structures located at 1722 Maple Street, order prompt demolition, removal, and leveling of the lot, and direct all costs attendant to such actions, including administrative costs, to be assessed against the property and or collected from the owner or owners thereof. Recommendation, approve the condemnation of the structures located at 1722 Maple Street.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set to consider condemnation of the structures on the lot located at 204 South Van Buren.
Again, Kevin, you have the floor.
Thank you. This property was placarded November 13th, 2018 due to extreme dilapidation. The owner was unable to make the needed repairs and therefore staff recommends condemnation and eventual demolition.
This also is a public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to address the council. Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Condemn the structures located at 204 South Van Buren, order prompt demolition, removal, and leveling of the lot, and direct all costs attendant to such actions, including administrative costs, to be assessed against the property and or collected from the owner or owners thereof. Recommendation, approve the condemnation of the structures located at 204 South Van Buren.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second. Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any other council business on the Board of Health? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Health. So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
534.
534. Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll convene the regular city council meeting, and in order to do that, we need to take the roll again.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes, here.
Councilmember Strebe? Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 2 on January 22nd, 2019, and special meeting number 4 on January 29th, 2019, as presented. Approve the promotion of Dave Eakins to the position of full-time transit driver effective February 6, 2019. Approve the appointment of Henry Hank Harper to the position of utility worker, Parks Department, effective February 25th, 2019. Approve the payment to Computer Information Systems Incorporated for $13,992 for a one-year license renewal and maintenance agreement for the police department's in-house computer software. Setting March 5th, 2019 as the date of a public hearing on the proposed adoption of the fiscal year 2019-2020 city budget. Resolution number 21, 2019, setting February 19th, 2019 as the date of a public hearing on the proposition of the issuance of not to exceed 1.4 million general obligation bonds of the city of Ottumwa, state of Iowa for essential corporate purposes and providing for publication of notice thereof. Beer and/or liquor applications for Hy-Vee Wine and Spirits at 2453 North Court, Pallister Brothers Brewing Company at 116 North Market Street, Albia Road BP at 1340 Albia Road, North Court BP at 1301 North Court, Pennsylvania and Jefferson BP at 1147 North Jefferson, West 2nd and McPherson BP at 1049 West 2nd. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Item C of our agenda, we need approval for tonight's agenda.
Move the approval as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Skip. Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to call on City Administrator Andy Morris to give us a report. So Andy, you have the floor.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. 3 items to go through rather quickly. The very first item you see, and I make note, Mayor Lazio and I will be attending a public improvement session anyway, as it relates to the public school system with Ottumwa Community Schools. We'll be attending that tomorrow, and it's my understanding those meetings probably will continue into the spring, and again, to the extent that we're invited, that we will certainly attend those. The next item you see on the agenda, item number 2, the Blakes Branch Sewer Separation Project. That's one that Larry Seals, Public Works Director, will discuss a week from today. On the 12th, we have a work session planned for that day. I don't know whether Mr. Seals wants to talk about that at all or wait until that day. Mayor, that's... Okay, we'll just wait till the 12th. The last item, which is not listed, and the mayor and I talked about this today, I think as council can recall, we've had a series of setup meetings, community meetings over the past couple of years. And after the end of 2018, we decided to, quite frankly, dial back a little bit the number of them. So I need to start setting dates and times for community meetings. We'll have 2 of those instead of 3. The Industrial Roundtable will have 2 of those instead of 3. And then the Finance Committee meeting, we will have 3 of those particular meetings. But I want to let council know, watch for your email, because what I'll start doing is sending out itineraries and meeting setups, probably beginning with the community meeting. We'll likely do one of those in the spring and then another one of those in the summer. That's all I have, Mayor, unless you or council members have any questions or comments. Again, I'll be communicating that to council pretty quickly.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item E in our agenda, is there anyone in the audience that has turned in a slip that wants to address the council on an item on the agenda? I don't see any, so we'll move on to item F.
Ottumwa Public Library 2018 Annual Report. Recommendation, receive presentation.
We have Sonia Farrell, the library director. Good evening, Sonia. You have the floor.
Good evening. Okay, good. He'll have something to look at instead of just listening to me. I wanted to thank you for allowing me to present to you tonight. As a part of the city code, I am supposed to present an annual report annually, but that isn't always what has happened in the past. So I did put together one that was included in your packet. It is better in color on our website, so if you want to see some of the pictures, that might be good to go to our website. We can go to the next one. As a major accomplishment of the library in the last year, and all of these numbers will be fiscal year numbers from 2017 to 2018, was a passage of a 4-year strategic plan. This was a 9-month process, and I think the last time I was before you, we were just beginning that, and I was explaining that. We began with working with the library, the state library, as a consultant on the project, and then we had 2 stakeholder meetings in the community before our board approved the plan last April. It includes an updated mission and vision statement, as well as 34 objectives. 10 of those have been enacted in the year of 2018. Those completed included an improved public relations and marketing plans. You'll see us more active on social media and our website. Database promotions, some updated seating, a new meeting room table, updated collection development plan, and others that I will describe later. The main focus of the strategic plan was working on emphasizing projects that would not need additional funding, additional staff time, or additional space. So that results in us partnering with other organizations, having volunteer contributions, and funding them through donations and grants. This strategic plan is available on our website. Okay. We had 2 grant successes that involved work on the exterior of our building this last year. The Divas with Dollars contributed $9,200 to the library that was contributed through our Friends of the Library program. This funding helped pay for the half of the exterior pressure washing of the library. It made a huge difference, as you can tell in the pictures. I can't believe I got 2 exactly sunny days for the before and after. But the total project was $19,678, and so that gift from the Divas with Dollars helped make that project a success. We also received a matching grant of $30,000 from the Ottumwa Regional Legacy Foundation's Bright Ideas grant that matched the Ottumwa Public Library Foundation to fund a tuck point repair and preventative maintenance project. The overall project was we had an overage of the initial estimates, and so the foundation contributed the rest. And so the total project was $83,000, excuse me. So these needed repairs helped us maintain the historic registry building that we all know and love of our Carnegie Library. And so I hope that we don't have to have them anytime soon again. A major success in the library of this last year was our programming. All of our programming, all of our services are free at the library, as you well know. And so a number of people that we touch through our programs, I think, is remarkable. One of our new programs this year that was also a part of our strategic plan was our pop-up library. This was basically a bookmobile without wheels that we went around to different neighborhood locations that were not near the library to try to reach kids that might not have access to get to the library in the summer. And we utilized donated books and funds that we bought additional books that are not a part of our library collection. So if we never saw these books again, at least we got them in the hand of one kid. And we encouraged them to return them, but that was not the point of it. So Allison, our children's librarian, went around to 22 stops over the summer, and 445 kids were served through that program. We will continue it this summer. It might be revised and adjusted, but I think it's a critical program to be able to get to those kids. The bulk of the lending took place at Liberty Elementary because they host the PTYC in the summer, so that was a lot of them. Overall, 9,746 people attended programs at the library, and there was 553 total programs held. 434 of those were for children, and 8,573 children attended programs in the last fiscal year. All of these numbers are up from the previous year. Some of our most successful programs include the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. If you follow our Facebook page, nothing gets a bigger hit than when a child reaches those 1,000 books before they start kindergarten. I think we've had around 25 kids complete that program, and we started it 2 years ago. We have 3 weekly story times, crafternoons, science clubs, Lego clubs, and book clubs for teens that include a manga anime one, which if you know anything about that, you know more than I do, so it's a little cult unto itself. Our summer reading program numbers included 490 kids participating, 40 teens, and 178 adults. For all of these summer reading programs and our Reminisce Society that is aimed at adults, we have utilized renting the KC Hall and the Hub because we are not large enough in our meeting room to sustain the size of crowds that we get for these programs. For adults, the Reminisce programs continue to be successful, and we also have 4 adult book clubs that are going strong as well. In circulation, the whole point of the programs is to get people to come into the library, and if people come into the library, they will check out the books, so it's very cyclical. Our circulation has increased the last 3 years, and that's due to the increase in our children's circulation. They are carrying the weight there. Last year, our children's circulation, all the different types of materials, was 46,148, and then our total circulation for the entire library was 119,614. That also includes our bridges, which is our electronic checkout for ebooks and downloadable audiobooks, and that was up to 11,826 checkouts. In the pictures above, we added, I am showing our new Spanish adult collection, and that has been successful so far. We have been utilizing some trust money that we were given to build that collection, and that was new this year. Our door count increased to 88,780, which is great, and it's especially great on top of the fact that we've moved some of our programs to the KC Hall, so not all those people are coming through our door counter. So I'm especially proud of that statistic. For the upcoming year, we have lots of new programs and projects underway. You might have read about at the beginning of January, we're going to be getting a new ILS system. It goes live on Monday, so we're all very nervous about that. That is our integrated library system. It's basically our online catalog and our related staff side software. The new system will mean better online experience for patrons, communication through text messaging between staff and patrons, a greater ability on the library staff side to manage limited budget funds for materials. It has an acquisitions model, which we'll be able to utilize, and we'll be able to do, statistics on what area is getting checked out so that we can aim our collection development in those areas that are popular with our community. And it's going to be a huge financial savings compared to our current system. Our current one is around $19,000 a year, and this is going to bring it down to about $7,300 a year. So we're really excited about that, and I'm trying to keep the staff from already spending the money in their head on what we're going to use those savings for. The new system it's supported by a company called Bywater Solutions, and it's called COA. So we'll be starting that up on Monday morning. Another major project that's also a part of our strategic plan is called Adventure Pass. This is a consortium of libraries across the state that pay into a program where different locations and tourist family programs across the state allow us to buy season passes. So we're going to start small, and we bought a season pass for the Blank Park Zoo. And so a family will be able to come to the library and check out a pass for a week. And that will gain them admittance for up to 4 people free at the zoo. And they can use that one time in a year per library card. So we're really excited about that, to provide families with free entertainment where funds can be limited for that. Another new program that we're starting is going to be funded through a Bright Ideas grant that was matching to our Friends of the Library. We received $21,000 total between the Legacy Foundation and our friends for a new program called OPL is Open. It seeks to provide members of our community with accessible tools and knowledge knowledge necessary to participate in our increasingly technologically oriented society. So basically, it's we're going to have we have already purchased 15 laptops, and we're going to have like a mobile media lab. So one of the ways we'll utilize them is to have them in our meeting room, and we can offer classes now. If you've been in the library, you see where our public computers don't lend themselves to a classroom use. So we'll be able to have basic email classes, as well as teaching people how to scan their personal photos, upload or transition VHS family movies into digitized versions, and all of those kinds of courses, as well as a place for teens to go after school where they'll have their own little space, and because they like to game with each other. And right now that creates some tension upstairs if there's adults doing resumes on one computer and then, you know, 3 kids are trying to play some online game. So we'll have a separate space for the teens to be able to use that. We've also purchased digital GoPro cameras for checkout, so folks will be able to take them home and record their own video to edit. And we'll have green screens available for patrons to use in the library to assist their movie making activities as well. We will also be starting in the next year a digital archive that we will have available on our website. And through these courses and equipment, will allow people from the community to contribute to those archives. So I like to give the example, like let's say if we hosted RAGBRAI again, we would get everybody's different perspective on it for our future procurement, or they could be uploading family photos from the past, and maybe that person had something to do with Ottumwa history and they could contribute to that. I like to think of it as all the great things that Ottumwa We Love Ottumwa Facebook page has without any of the negative. So we'll be able to like say, oh, did you have that teacher in high school, and document those kinds of projects. Our last 3 projects include a landscaping project that Alicia Hauk with Ottumwa Wildflower Project is leading up. She's been gracious enough to design a plan that she entitled Enchanted Garden. It'll help improve the aesthetics of the library grounds, as well as provide some learning environment as well. She is using her expertise to plant shade-friendly plants on the southeast side, sun-friendly ones on the north side. We're going to have a mulch path winding from the 3rd Street to the entrance, and in the future, potentially have some outdoor musical instruments similar to those that are behind the BVC, or the Bridgeview Center. All of this is going to be covered through volunteer labor and grants and donations for the seeds and plants. I'm currently in discussions with the United Way to hopefully partner to have a garden tool lending library, so that patrons would be able to come to the library and check out basic garden tools. In theory, these would be able to be used in their own garden or in a community garden, and we'll start small and hope that to build up to a larger library that includes bigger equipment in the future. And finally, we were hoping to expand the sidewalk on the south side of the library. If you've ever parked on the alley and walked up, you'll realize it's a one-way traffic only, and if you have to walk off the sidewalk, it's kind of a steep incline. So we're hoping to do that in the next fiscal year as well. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? I would just compliment you and your board of trustees who worked very hard. I had the privilege of sitting in on a recent meeting when they were talking about the Enchanted Garden, and I'm impressed with the dedication and the knowledge of our volunteers. So you've done a nice job, and they should be given a pat in the back for the work they do for you at the library.
We just want to thank the City Council and the community of Ottumwa for all the support they give us down at the library.
Good. Okay, thank you, Sonia. At this time, I'd like to call on Andy to start us off on the Ottumwa Regional Airport, and you're going to start.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the council members, Councilman Rowe, asked for an update from the airport, and it's time that we do that. Probably should have done it sooner. What I zeroed in on with assistance from Bob J. and staff was to talk more specifically about the finances. I know Chris is going to outline some of the projects, but I want to put these in front of you and put some perspective as to the fund balance, and it's certainly fallen a little bit. If you look at the documents you see before you, you'll see that there are 2 attachments. One is an assets and liability page that's listed as attachment A. The second item is the attachment B, which is essentially the profit and loss statement. And we'll get to both of those in a little bit. Certainly we'll answer any questions that council members have. Just a couple of highlights I would note from the first item, and that is, again, the very first one you see in front of you, and that's the assets and liabilities page. If you take in consideration, you can see from the previous year, and this is 17-18, and you'll see that fund balance has dropped plus or minus about $39,000-$40,000. I would argue a great deal of that is specific to some of the projects that we have taken on at the airport, Mayor. In addition to that, there have also been some, let's just say, challenges, some write-offs that we've had to do from an accounting standpoint. That one is certainly in front of you. The other one is, I just mentioned, the income statement as well. The P&L also reflects that same essential environment. The other item you have, Bob J., our finance director, put together a very good dissertation. It is, I think we had to kill a lot of trees to do this, so I won't go into all the details, but it's essentially the city's general ledger. And you will see that what I tried to do was concentrate on, again, those 2 years in 17-18, so you can get a perspective of what some of our challenges have been. Mr. Mayor, with that, I would ask that you call Chris Cobbler to the microphone, and he can, as I said, probably talk more specifically about some of the projects.
Okay. Good evening, Chris. Glad to have you here and give us an update from your perspective on some of the projects.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And if you could pass these out. So Andy asked me to put together a update for the airport. And so we're going to look at some numbers that happened in 2018. And so we're going to start out on the first page with the fuel farm. And we started that project in the fall of 2017. And you'll see that the grant was approved actually in August of 16. The bids we received for that project in February of 2017. We actually started construction on that last fall and completed that project in about March, April. And the bids came in at $375,000 for that project. We had to do a change order on that project because they needed a capability of fueling the FBO's fuel trucks. So you'll see that there was a $17,000 addition, which made the total construction of that project $392,000, $723. And then you add the engineering fee, and then if you deduct the grant that we got from the Iowa DOT, that project cost the airport a total of $199,000 and $475. To help with that project a little bit, we did sell the old fuel tank that we were not going to need, and that fuel tank sold for $11,000. Okay. The next project was the apron improvement project. The grant was approved for that in September of 2017. We received bids in May of 2018 for that project. The bids came in at $255,705, and you can see that the bids came in lower than what our grant amount was. So to use the full maximum potential of the grant, we did more construction work. We added to that with a change order and made it so it's $292,755. And with that, we was able to do over 37,000 square feet of apron area. That's about 1/3 of what we need to do in that area. We got another grant for this fall to do more of that apron area. So we started the project in July of 2018, finished it in August. And so the total cost on that project, as you can see, was $341,755. And then the grant was reduced off of that, $285,175, which made a total cost to the airport at $56,588. So if you add the fuel farm project and the apron improvement project, we did about $250,000 worth of projects at the airport in the past year since I've started. And these two projects were in the making before I actually got started. They were in the works to be done. Okay. The next 2 pages in your packet are the number of airplanes that produce a flight plan with the FAA for 2018. Okay. In the first page, as you can see, there's some airplanes that don't have a title to them. The owners of those airplanes have the right to not list their name of their airplane or who owns it. But those airplanes came into our airport. And then when you start to see the names of the airplane, owners of the airplane, you'll see Musco Lighting involved in there. And I highlighted that. So you can see that their annual operations, they came in the aisle of the airport 162 times. So they use our airport quite a bit. The next one is Mobile Crane, which is the same as Wimco. And Wimco came in out of the airport 88 times. Those are 2 airplanes that are based at our airport. So if you go to the next page, you'll see that our total is 930 at the bottom. And those are only flights that are registered by the FAA. If there's a pilot that chooses not to put out a flight plan to the FAA, which that would be smaller airplanes that they're just going to fly to Oskaloosa and back, they don't register a flight plan with the FAA. So they're not included in this report. So this is probably 2/3 actually of the planes that fly in and out of the airport in 1 year. We probably got an additional 500 to 600 more that flew in and out that didn't register a flight plan with the FAA.
Chris, you might make the comment too that FAA pays attention to the takeoff and landings from the airport, and that certainly has an effect on our status and our funding, and so why you pay attention to that.
Very much so, and you'll see that most of these flights are jets or turboprop airplanes, and so that's what they base why we get a new runway, how thick that runway will be, how wide it'll be, and they base it off what our normal traffic is that comes in and out of our airport. The next page is the self-serve that got put in with the fuel farm. And that self-serve, we've had to date 138 transactions have happened since we put that in. And a majority of those could be during a time period when the FBO is not open. The pilots can get fuel if they need it later on in the evenings. And it's been a real asset to have that. As you can see, there's been times where pilots have definitely used that. And so you can see how many gallons were sold through that and how much the city's made from that, just getting started. The last page is from our FBO and their fuel flowage and how much they've sold in the year of 2017 and the year of 2018. And at the bottom, you'll notice that their fuel flowage is down for 2018, and there's basically 2 reasons why that is. Musco's airplane was out of service for 6 weeks because they did updates on their airplane, and they took it back to the manufacturer, had some updates put in that plane. And so they did not use any fuel for a month and a half. That makes a huge difference. That could be close to 15,000 gallons right there that they did not use. And also in March of 18, Winger sold their airplane. So that jet is no longer based at the airport. And so we probably lost about 5,000 gallons of fuel from that airplane not being there no more. Okay. So that's probably why we're that much deficit on our fuel sales for 18. I'd just like to say that these projects that we've been doing at the airport are just great assets. They're great investments. They're things that are going to be there for the next 50 years to 70 years. And they cost the airport fund balance, but they were great investments. The thing that we're looking forward to, everybody should be looking forward to, is the reconstruction of the runway. And that's getting ready to happen. We're going to start that project probably sometime in April. It's got moved back just a little bit because of the weather. So we're going to start that project in April. It'll be a total rip out of the runway. It'll totally have all new lighting system put in for the runway 1331. The airport will not be closed during that time period. The other runway, 422, is going to be open the whole time during that construction period. The only time that 422 will be shortened is when they're doing the intersection, but it'll only be shortened to the taxiway. 422 runway is 4,600 feet long, and so it'll probably be shortened up about 600 to 800 feet. And so it'll still be open. So small planes can come in and out of there still. And Indian Hills will still be able to fly. They fly almost every day during the summer. So they'll still be able to function. And so there's been a lot of talk about the airport being closed. That will not be the case, okay? Looking forward to getting that project started. That's a major project. Does anybody have any questions?
Mark? I have a couple.
Yeah.
Thanks for presenting first and foremost. First question, looking at the financials and taking away the grant money on the year to date for 2017-18 and then 2018-19, I notice we're about flat in revenue to those two time frames, yet the gallons sold is down $20,000. Is there, I'm assuming, a price increase per gallon that's caused the revenue to stay somewhat fluid while the price of the fuels actually went down?
Well, the 20,000 is 20,000 gallons.
Correct.
We make 12 cents off each gallon that is sold. So that would be our revenue of the 20,000 gallons would be only 12 cents of that 20,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'm wondering how, and I know there's probably going to be a little bit of difference here because we're looking at a full year versus a half a year, but on these 2 half-year increments, we're pretty flat on revenue. Again, less of the grant money, but we're down $20,000 or 20,000 gallons worth of fuel sales. How did the revenue stay flat with the fuel sales being down is what I'm asking.
Well, we're always looking at ways for revenue at the airport. And we did rent out one of our buildings and got some rent out of one of our buildings that we did not have rented before. So we had some revenue that way. But you're talking about the revenue of the fuel?
Well, just revenue in total, not necessarily
okay,
just the.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, one question on that, and perhaps this will help. Maybe it defines it or not, but Ms. Vine, does it speak at all? There were some write-offs, and that we don't need to go in the intricacies of that, but I would imagine those write-offs had some effect, which brings the balance to about
Correct.
136,000. That's
Yep.
certainly one component.
Yep.
And I guess my other question is, you had mentioned the close down of 1331 for construction. How much of an impact for the traffic do you think that that's actually going to have come April? Do you expect any sort of decline in the traffic at all?
Well, we will have a decline in traffic because Musco, 422 runway is a little bit short for Musco to land. They can do it if the conditions are perfect. So they might have to base their airplane at another location. So we're going to lose some fuel flowage from them, and they buy a lot of fuel. Now, Wimco's jet is a little bit smaller jet, and it can land at a slower speed. So that jet can use that other runway just fine. So I think that there'll be smaller jets that will still be able to use 422 just fine. When we get bigger jets in here, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. If you noticed in the list of jets that come in and out, one of the jets was with no name on it was a Gulfstream 650. That's a large jet. That was owned by Procter & Gamble. They came in to do business with a Junimoto. That jet won't be able to land here. They'll probably have to land at Des Moines and then come down here. So there will be some deduction in fuel. That's probably going to happen.
I think the net result will be a decrease over the summer months, and that's obviously when we have most of our traffic too. But the end result, the investment, again, Chris, I think you made a good point, is that this is an improvement, and we will be at 6,001 feet for the runway, which will give us more capacity for jets in the future. So again, it's a wise move, and I think the council knows this, but for the general public, FAA is paying 90 cents on the dollar for that reconstruction. So that is just a bargain we can't not take advantage of.
Yep. When we get done with the new runway, making it up to 6,000 feet, we'll be able to land about any jet out there, even extremely large jets in case of an emergency. Not something we're going to do every day, but we'll be able to do that because we're extending it to that mark. That's kind of a mark they say, oh yeah, we can land there now. So that's a really good asset that we're going to be doing at the airport.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Chris or for Andy? Chris, thank you for that update. We appreciate it, and keep us posted as we go through this.
Sure.
It will be an interesting summer at the airport.
Yes, it will. Okay. Thank you.
Bid review and contract award for asbestos removal and demolition of 1022 Plum Street. Recommendation: award the contract for asbestos removal at 1022 Plum Street to Weston McKee in the amount of $9,000, and the contract for demolition to Tim Skinner in the amount of $7,392.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second. Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bids for asbestos removal and demolition of a building at 1022 Plum Street were received until January 29th, 2019. 3 bids were received, with Weston McKee submitting the winning bid for asbestos removal for $9,000, and Tim Skinner submitting the best bid for demolition at $7,392.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board recommendations. Recommendation: approve the January 28th, 2019 Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board recommendations.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Larry. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. City staff discussed the attached request on November 14th, 2018, and the Ottumwa Public Safety Advisory Board reviewed and approved the attached recommendations on January 28th, 2019. We had a request to take a look at the intersection of Albia and North Court, at the existing parking on North Court that blocks line of sight. After reviewing this, we made a recommendation to remove one parking spot on the north side of that intersection and post it no parking here to corner. A second request was from residents that live on McKinley Avenue across from the old school system. And there was a concern, and they have attached photos, if you have all those, of cars parking in front of fire hydrants, and would this cause a problem? We did reach out to both the police chief and the fire chief, and then we also spoke with our legal department. And the code as interpreted is 5 feet from the back of curb is sufficient. The fire department agreed that they have plenty of room within that if that is the setback of a fire hydrant. So our recommendation was to deny that request. We had a third request to look at parking and line of sight blocking on West Main Street, just adjacent to the Westgate Towers East Drive. And after reviewing that, we looked at that, and it too causes some line of sight problems. One of the things we try to balance when we're looking at street parking versus line of sight is, of course, street speed classification. We try to maximize on street parking in some neighborhoods simply because they don't have a lot of parking, and that's just simply the way the area is developed over time. So we are cautious on removing a lot of parking and setbacks. Anyway, the recommendation after looking at that is to actually remove 2 parking spots because of the traffic, the speed, the location, and the sight distance. The fourth request that we had was if we would designate a turning lane when you are eastbound on West Main, just really past ICE rail tracks, and where Main splits off and goes into Main Street and 2nd Street. We looked at the lane configuration, pavement width, and traffic volume, and the recommendation is to deny that request. We don't believe that warrants any additional signage or street marking.
Any questions for Larry? Okay, then let's, you want to make any comments about your last item there, number 6?
Well, we just discussed a lot of times with the public safety meeting, we try to keep them updated on up and coming projects. At that time, we were going to have Alta Vista ready, but we've got some additional issues that we've got to work out with not only a water main grade, but the county section of the road. So we've pulled that from the public hearing. We're still on track for Jefferson, which is the next item, and we could discuss it at that time.
No further questions? Let's take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you, Larry.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the 2019 Ottumwa Transit funding.
Go ahead, Larry.
The project will consist of a full depth, full width reconstruction of Jefferson Street from 6th Street north to approximately 175 feet.
Whoops, wait a minute. I think we're going to ask Mary to step up to the, Mary's going to step up and talk to us about transportation. Sorry, Larry. Good evening, Mary Kirk. You have the floor.
Thank you. Application to receive state and federal funding. The consolidated funding application allows transit to receive STA and FTA funding. FTA of $365,000 and $365,203. STA is $214,235. And federal capital assistance of $208,210. This is the primary funding for Ottumwa Transit's operation.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 20, 2019, authorizing the mayor to sign the Department of Transportation resolution allowing Ottumwa Transit to receive state funding. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 20, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Jefferson Street reconstruction project.
Now we can start, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The project will consist of full-width, full-depth reconstruction of Jefferson Street from 6th Street north to approximately 175 feet south of Garrow Street. The project will include the installation of sanitary, storm, and water mains. A storm system will be installed to separate the combined system. A new sidewalk will be replaced on the east side of the roadway. Any additional needed funds will come from Lost. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on February 27th at 2 p.m. and a bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at council meeting on March 5th or later date as determined by staff.
This too is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 25, 2019, approving the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Jefferson Street reconstruction project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 25, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Any questions for Larry? This is a big project and you'll have plenty of opportunity to keep us posted on this.
It'll be difficult because of access issues.
Yeah. Try to keep our public fully advised of this. Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 26, 2019, approving the purchase of wave generation equipment for a beach phase 4 project through Aquatic Development Group for a total not to exceed $115,375. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 26, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The beach wave generation equipment is 25 years old and proprietary in nature. Due to equipment problems this past swim season, the city hired Aquatic Development Group from Cohoes, New York to assess the condition of the equipment and present recommendations. ADG is the original supplier of the equipment and concluded the equipment is near the end of its useful service life. Staff has reviewed repair and reconditioning options of the existing equipment along with ADG's considerations, noting the importance of the wave generation equipment for public interest. After presentation at the January 29th, 2019 council work session when repair or replacement options were discussed, staff is recommending the purchase of new wave generation equipment from ADG for the Beach Phase 4 project in the amount of $115,375. A separate bid package is being prepared for the installation of this equipment. And at this time, I'd like to introduce City Engineer Dwight Dolman, who's going to discuss the various options for the new wave machine.
Good evening, Dwight. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in your packet is this diagram of the different waves, but I wanted to take the opportunity to go over it for the viewing public. I think it's kind of exciting, the fact that we're going to have the ability to control the types of waves that we have at the Beach Ottumwa. Right now, you can see the roller type wave that's on the far right side of the screen. That's typical of the type of waves that we can produce now. But with this equipment, we're going to be able to do like below the split roller and the V waves and the inverted V waves. the diamond, double diamond, diagonal left, diagonal right. These are all different types of waves that we're going to be able to produce. Now, when we are working a wave session at the beach, we will probably have a 5-minute session where we have waves. There'll be like a 5-minute period where we have no waves, where it gives the equipment a chance to recharge and regenerate. Then we have another session of waves. So each of those sessions of waves will only have one type of wave. So like one 5-minute session, we could have like the diagonal left wave. After the 5-minute break and we start again on the next 5-minute session, we could have the diamond wave, that kind of arrangement. We could go through like that throughout the entire afternoon. So I think it's exciting for the public. I think they'll really appreciate this, and hopefully we'll see the numbers increase because of the attraction.
Any questions for Dwight? Good, thank you very much. That's exciting. Any other questions for Gene? If not, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 27, 2019, authorizing the mayor to sign task order number 14 for engineering services for the Ottumwa Regional Airport Runway 1331 Reconstruction Extension Improvement Contract with Kirkham Michael Consulting Engineers. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 27, 2019.
Move the recommendations presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Joni, are you? Okay.
I'll be glad to, Your Honor. This resolution approves and authorizes the mayor to sign task order number 14 for the sum of $50,000 for construction engineering services to be provided by the city's airport consultant, Kirkham Michael, for the runway extension. I've attached a task order, and this is basically the engineering services that for the extra 115 to 116 foot extension that makes this runway 6,000 feet long. So we have to pay for that extension, and we have to pay for the engineering cost. So we're making sure for auditing purposes that this is kept separate so the FAA doesn't get confused about this. So this is for the engineering services for our 115 to 116 foot extension. And those costs are to be borne entirely by the city.
Okay. Any questions for Joni? I think she gave you a complete packet and the information finances are on. Okay, if there's no questions, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3152, 2019, establishing the Downtown Ottumwa Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 386, Code of Iowa, and providing for the establishment of certain funds and the levy of annual taxes in connection therewith. Recommendation: pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3152, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on that?
Mayor, I'll handle this one on the staff summary. The summary you see in front of you, and as you know, Ms. Keith has prepared a number of the documents that lend themselves to the SMID district, the Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District. I'm not going to read through this verse in scripture. What I do want to outline a little bit. Staff spent a little bit of time this afternoon breaking down how the SMID monies, not how they're necessarily disseminated, but how this breaks down between construction, of course, and then the ongoing maintenance. And these figures are based on several conversations I've had with staff. Construction specific to streetscape should begin sometime fall 2019. Maintenance in the SMID should begin once that is completed. Obviously, to the extent that the construction is done, the ongoing maintenance is something that will follow. There may be some overlap, certainly in those two, but there certainly is a separation. The levy for this SMID, I think you saw this in my weekly report of last week. The levy for the SMID will be implemented, all items being equal, July 1, 2020. decisions made to disperse those SMID monies and capitalize certain projects, certainly you'll see that begin to take shape in the fall of 2020. So what we're trying to do is draw a distinction between when that construction begins. Obviously, when the construction begins, maintenance will begin as well. There may be a little bit of a delay, but I think those two will work in tandem rather well. I wanted to give council some perspective of that. As is noted in the staff summary, which Ms. Keith put together, there is a committee that will make recommendations to council as to the disbursement of funds, and they will appear before council. So that committee will appear. I don't have the dates on that. I think that will begin to envelop as this program in progress on this moves forward. But they will be making recommendations to council, and then it's a legislative decision to council to whether or not to capitalize them. As I've shared with council members and with staff, the city will certainly be making application on those items as the attorney Bob Johnston's put together in his dissertation on those enhanced projects. Those are items, responsibilities that we're taking on that are in addition to our responsibilities right now. If you think of the downtown flower lady as an example, that's something that's existing. To the extent the city will be expanding that footprint and taking on, let's say, caring for more perennials or additional items or plants, those are typically items that we would, if we can't capitalize them ourselves, then we would make petition anyway to the committee. And again, to reiterate, that's something that falls strictly to the council, and council votes on that. This is the first reading. I guess I should ask, are we going to have 2 additional readings then? This is the final one?
Well, we have, let's take the first one is the motion to pass the first consideration, and we can waive the second and third if that's council's priority or preference. Any questions for Andy or Joni?
I have one.
Sure.
So with it being moved to starting July 1st, 2020, knowing that Main Street's been involved in the budgeting process of this, has that been discussed that they know that it's 2020?
Yes, they do know.
Okay.
They should. The other item, just capitalize on that, the Councilwoman pointed out, it's important to know, I listed some of the maintenance items, but in addition to that, if you'll read the information again from Mr. Johnston's, it also covers salaries, office space, engineering, legal fees. It's not simply just maintenance and construction. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so they're voting on the first consideration of this ordinance as presented. Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3152, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Item J on our agenda is a public forum for anybody that wants to address the council on any item of city business. Is there anybody that wants to do that? Okay, item K is communications from council and mayor. I just want to compliment, we did have a sellout for the Bull Riders program at Bridgeview, and attending the Bridgeview breakfast with the Bull Riders, they were very complimentary of our city staff, especially Public Works, who brought in the dirt and set up the arena. And they were very appreciative, and they are planning to come back for the next couple of years. So we're really feeling good about that. Secondly, I would ask citizens' patience and understanding with the extreme freezing and thawing that we've just experienced. We are having a lot of new potholes that are just going to be a function, and we're doing the best we can. City staff have been out filling some of those, but it's just a function of living in Iowa and having freezing and thawing this time of the year. So when you have 50 degrees one week and 20 degrees the next, you're going to get that. So please be patient and understanding, but call them in and we'll take care of them as best we can. Any questions from council? Any comments from council? Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Matt.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you and good night at 6:34.